A man was pushed off a platform by his employees after he fired those who were not working. He was only a meter away from an approaching subway train when suddenly time seemed to stop. Everything around him froze. During his confusion, the people and animals around him began to speak with him. One of them claimed to be the creator, or God. They had stopped time to have a conversation with this man on the brink of death, using the bodies of animals and people. God did this out of boredom and decided to offer the man a chance to be reborn. However, the man did not believe in the existence of God and argued fiercely with them. God felt that it was pointless to reincarnate a non-believer and decided to send him to a harsh environment to inspire faith in him. Before the rebirth, God warned him that if he died again, there would be no more chances for rebirth. When the man opened his eyes again, he saw a nun feeding him with a spoon. Turning to a mirror, he found himself reborn as a baby named Tanya, in a poor monastery in another world, where even basic necessities were scarce. He had to survive on dry bread due to the poverty and ongoing war in the country. This environment left little chance for survival for him as a young girl. However, during a medical check at the orphanage, he was found to have magical abilities. Those with such abilities were called sorcerers and would eventually be conscripted into the army. Planning ahead, he decided to pursue military education early to become an officer, ensuring he wouldn't just be cannon fodder on the battlefield. This path not only avoided direct conflict with others, but also promised a brighter future. Tanya quickly joined the military academy. Compared to other students, her physique was notably unique, but she studied very hard because she needed to become strong to survive in this environment. Using the wisdom from her previous life, Tanya mastered flying magic in just 10 days. Her exceptional performance enabled her to rise to the rank of instructor within a year. However, her childlike body made some adults look down on her. The new recruits were skeptical of being disciplined by a young girl's voice, but they soon paid the price for their ignorance when a sudden explosion occurred, making them kneel. Tanya mocked the words they had just uttered. The recruits were confused, but Tanya argued that those unable to take initiative should be removed like weeds from the nation. When the recruits tried to retaliate, Tanya knocked them down. She picked up a magic gun and aimed it at a man, declaring that those who insult an officer would pay the price. Just as she was about to act, she was stopped by a superior officer. Due to the conflict with the students, Tanya was reassigned to the front lines as an observer. Her main task was to fly and spot enemy positions, coordinating with her team to launch artillery and conduct surprise attacks, inflicting devastating damage on the enemy. However, the enemy sent a squadron to attack Tanya. While she was observing, she found herself affected by electromagnetic interference, losing communication with headquarters. At that moment, the enemy attacked her. Overwhelmed by the intense assault during her first battle, she tried to contact her superiors to request a retreat, but was disappointed by their response to wait for reinforcements. Realizing she would not survive until help arrived, Tanya decided to fight to the death. She turned around and charged at the enemy, throwing away her radio and resolving to face death. She killed one enemy as she approached and took down two more with her speed. However, as enemy fire intensified, Tanya ran out of bullets. She smiled slightly and embraced an enemy, triggering a self-destruct with her remaining magical power. Even the enemy was stunned by her self-sacrificial spirit. Suddenly, a figure fell through the smoke into the forest. It was Tanya. Surprisingly, she survived and was even hailed as an ace. Surrounded by military officers, she was awarded a medal, but she was not pleased, worrying that she might be sent back to the front lines. A man, simply for arguing with a deity, was placed by the god into the body of a young girl in a war-torn alternate world. Fortunately, possessing powerful magic, he was recruited by the army as a mage. At just 10 years old, he joined the military. With his modern wisdom, he quickly rose to the rank of second lieutenant. However, Due to a conflict with students during training, he was sent to the front lines. On the battlefield, his reckless nature led him to a suicidal confrontation with the enemy, from which he miraculously survived thanks to his protagonist's aura. He was even awarded a medal by the military for his actions. Yet, his reckless behavior caught the attention of a doctor who requested that he be reassigned to academic research in the rear. The military agreed, as sending a 10-year-old girl to the front lines would surely bring international disgrace. Tanya was thrilled with this outcome, as he had no desire to be on the battlefield and preferred to live a carefree life in the rear. However, he soon regretted it, as the so-called academic research involved testing a new type of orb at high altitudes, which could easily explode. This was the latest orb developed by the doctor, designed to convert magical power into flying magic. However, due to its enormous consumption of magic, only Tanya could test it. The orb was highly unstable, and the doctor, a theorist, always trusted its theoretical capabilities, believing his device would surpass conventional ones regardless of its actual condition. This led to Tanya being blown up several times a day during tests. Without her magical protection, she would have died hundreds of times. Finally, Tanya could no longer endure it and quit, abandoning the equipment. She declared that such a defective product was not worthy of further research and was only fit to be a decorative vase. The doctor tried to persuade her that the experiment would succeed, pleading persistently. However, Tanya had truly had enough. No number of lives would be enough to keep dying there, and even the front line seemed better than dying from explosions here. So, she decisively wrote a transfer request. Given her exceptional abilities, her superiors agreed to the application. After receiving their response, Tanya lay satisfied in bed. Suddenly, everything around her froze. The Creator himself appeared, noting that Tanya still had not developed faith in the divine. Tanya replied that she was living well without relying on any deity. The Creator mentioned granting her a favor to show his power, but Tanya was uninterested and even smashed a statue of the Creator. When Tanya woke up, it was the next day, and the doctor had not given up. He wanted to make one last attempt before Tanya's transfer, planning to increase the experiment's dosage by 10,000 times, which could potentially blow up the entire test site if it failed. Tanya wanted to resist, but the doctor's higher rank left her no choice but to gamble with her life one last time. This doctor is truly mad. Since it was the last experiment, he maximized the magical power. If it failed, the entire testing ground would be obliterated. Tanya, the test subject, was just unlucky. At 4,000 meters, the device under her became unstable and seemed bound to lose control. Tanya wanted to quit, but the doctor reassured her, claiming a divine vision last night assured success, showing his growing madness. Suddenly, the device's magic coefficient changed unexpectedly. Tanya tried to expel the excess magic, but the researchers warned that would cause the orb to collapse, making her fall from the sky. She activated the safety device, but the orb's intense magic destroyed it. The doctor then urged her to pray to the gods. Hearing this, Tanya realized she was being played by the gods. Just a second before the explosion, the world froze again, and a deity appeared. He told Tanya he would help her complete the orb experiment, but from now on, every time she used the orb, she must praise the gods. This forceful act to gain her reverence was utterly shameless. Yet to survive, Tanya had to compromise with the deity. Well, it turns out one still needs to believe in gods. Science may not always save lives, but gods definitely can. With just a word, the deity resolved an issue that troubled scientists for years, making the orb work at that moment. Only Tanya could use this orb, now empowered by divine strength, making it extremely powerful. A regular bullet in her hands was like a missile, and she could fly to heights unreachable by others, obliterating everyone from above. However, only Tanya knew that despite its impeccable performance, this power was cursed.
神がそれを望まれるのだ。
To continue living, Tanya had to compromise with the gods, thus gaining immense power. With divine support, she alone could match an army. However, only Tanya knew this power was cursed, usable only when she professed worship of the gods. Ironically, Tanya was a non-believer. Her previous life's quarrel with a god had led to her current predicament. In another world, to survive, she joined the military at just 3 years old. Using modern wisdom, she rose to the rank of lieutenant and single-handedly destroyed an enemy's magical squadron, embodying the ideal soldier. Yet her personality was peculiar, earning her the label of a monster in the military.
その時の印象を僭越ながら申し上げますと、あれは幼女の皮をかぶった化け物です。
Since she was still only 10 years old, her superiors sent her to the military academy, which pleased Tanya, who preferred to be a lazy fish, enjoying academic research away from the front lines, securing a safe future.
何はともあれ、機関の武運を祈ろう。
Even in safety, she always carried weapons, preparing to kill gods if needed. An accident introduced her to the deputy chief of staff of the National Warfare Department while she was supposed to be entering her school phase. The chief asked her opinion on the war's trajectory. Tanya applied her modern knowledge, predicting a world war draining national resources. She agreed with the chief's views, demonstrating her value to ensure her survival in a peaceful rear. Unexpectedly, her insights caught the attention of higher-ups panicking Tanya. Later, Tanya proposed forming a unit of powerful magicians to weaken enemy forces, allowing victory while controlling their own troop consumption. She suggested a battalion-sized magical army as the optimal scale to maintain logistical ease and combat effectiveness. What Tanya never anticipated was that her suggestion would be approved by the military and that the chief of staff, in collusion with a colonel, set a trap under the guise of discussing her post-graduation assignment. They actually appointed her as the captain of the magical battalion.
機関には新設の職王魔導大隊を任せるつもりだ。
The magical battalion belongs to the warfare department, so Tanya was directly promoted to colonel. But should this be a cause for joy or sorrow? This girl is simply a demon because she cursed the gods a second before her death, leading her to be reborn in a war-torn world as a young girl. Using her wisdom from her previous life, she became the youngest lieutenant in the army. However, the chief of staff tricked her. Hoping to live safely in the rear, she instead became the captain of a new frontline magical battalion. This made her, who preferred to be idle, very angry. She could only delay by taking her time to select battalion members. After all, her devilish personality was well known throughout the army. Previously, when leading new recruits, she almost killed them. Yet, the military allowed her subordinates from her previous unit to become her deputies. During selection, she used illusions as obstacles, and out of 39 groups, 33 were disqualified. Only 12 qualified, equivalent to one company. She then initiated brutal training, condensing 2 years of tasks into 1 month. Explosions served as their wake-up call, followed by 36 hours of continuous bomb evasion training. With flares rising, countless shells fell from the sky. Everyone had to dig deep pits for shelter before the bombs fell. They hoped these were only training shells, but real shells were mixed in. Facing such a sadistic captain, everyone regretted joining the magical battalion. After enduring 36 hours, before they could rest, Tanya commanded them to start a special 48-hour marching drill without using magic. Along the way, they met soldiers with military dogs and had to take a detour to avoid trouble. The journey was uneventful, but Tanya's deputy was nervous, knowing Tanya could do anything. One soldier could no longer contain his anger, and after he yelled, an avalanche began. The snow buried all the soldiers, and Tanya told them that sleeping during training could lead to being shot. Suddenly, a soldier realized his teammate wasn't breathing and screamed for help. Seeing this scene, everyone felt scared. Such a terrifying instructor was inhuman. Falling behind could cost them their lives. Later, Tanya pulled the soldiers buried in the snow out and arrogantly told them this was part of the training. If they couldn't handle it, they could quit right then. Surprisingly, the soldiers were exceptionally united, and not a single one chose to leave. After enduring a month of intense training, everyone made it through. This shocked Tanya. She told them that they were no longer useless creatures. They would go to the battlefield, disregarding life and death, to fight as mages of the Empire. This little girl completely overturns your understanding of cute little girls. On the first day the new recruits arrived, she woke them up with a bomb. Then she subjected them to a 3-day and 3-night bombardment. Without a break, a 2-day marching drill followed. During an avalanche, when facing an injured teammate, she kicked them awake. After a month of training, surprisingly, everyone persevered. At that time, her superiors contacted her. As the Western Front was tense, they ordered her to immediately lead the 203rd Magic Battalion to support the battlefield. However, Tanya told them that the Magic Battalion had only trained for a month. Although their magic was strong, their physical stamina was inadequate. They needed at least 6 months to meet her requirements for combat. But the officer, citing the prosecutor's statement, said that all members of the Magic Battalion were equipped with the most advanced weapons and could easily fly at an altitude of 10,000 meters, surpassing all other military forces. Moreover, this was an order, not a discussion. With no choice, as rank trumps all, Tanya had to obey and lead the Magic Battalion to the front line. Just then, Tanya received an urgent notice. The nation was invaded by the Dakia army, which had 600,000 infantry but no air power. Their documents were also unencrypted, allowing Tanya to easily obtain the enemy's secret files. She then led her few dozen members of the Magic Battalion into battle against the 600,000-strong enemy army, which Tanya referred to as a live-fire exercise. At her command, the battalion split into 3 groups for the attack. The first group used armor-piercing bullets, turning the enemy into live targets as their bodies were penetrated one by one. The other 2 groups employed artillery tactics, with each bullet effectively exploding like a bomb, turning the ground into a sea of fire. However, Tanya noticed that the surviving soldiers on the ground did not scatter but gathered together. Apparently, the textbooks of that era taught that when under attack, grouping together was the response. Tanya mocked this. It was no longer the age of cavalry, and such tactics were outdated. She found that her own forces behaved similarly, spreading out and breaking the firing line as the textbooks had taught. The enemy grouped together, so they did too. This angered Tanya. Did they really think that mages flying in the air would be hit by infantry bullets? Afterwards, Tanya also joined the fight. Facing the enemy's attack, Tanya showed no mercy, dropping bombs directly on the ground. This made Tanya very curious about how backward the country really was, as her few dozen troops managed to defeat an army of 600,000. Victorious, Tanya did not prepare to retreat. Instead, she ordered an advance towards the enemy's capital. You've never seen such a brazen way of invasion. Before the invasion, they actually notified the opponent, stating that they would engage in fair combat in accordance with international law. Unexpectedly, the enemy soldiers took this as a child's prank. However, the magical army attacked mercilessly. The enemy's military headquarters set off fireworks, and their army of 600,000 was wiped out by just a dozen people. Tanya's squad became famous in one battle. While the high command was discussing how to reward Tanya and others, they were unaware that their northern supply base was under enemy attack. The enemy also had a flying magical army supported by bombers in the sky. Worse still, their own soldiers were out of magic power, and even the squadron leader was killed. A soldier contacted headquarters to request a retreat, but was told that the mountains stored their winter supplies. A retreat would result in bombing, halting the entire nation's army. With heavy casualties and no fighter support, they couldn't hold the position. Eventually, headquarters said they could evacuate because reinforcements had arrived, led by Tanya. If the last battle was live fire training, this one was a test of real strength. Kindly, Tanya called off the bomber support. With the 203rd Battalion's involvement, they quickly eliminated the enemy's vanguard. The situation turned around instantly. Tanya also encouraged her teammates, promising that the one who killed the fewest enemies would treat everyone to a meal. Hearing this, everyone fought even harder. At that moment, Tanya spotted bombers flying above and an enemy magical guard squad below. She commanded her deputy to confront the magical squadron while she herself went to destroy the bombers. The deputy was shocked by this order, noting the enemy had many bombers and questioning how she could fight them without a fighter jet. Tanya responded, "Don't you trust my abilities? After all, one does the work for the pay they receive." Meanwhile, the fighters noticed Tanya ascending and immediately opened fire, but she easily dodged the bullets due to her speed and small size. Soon, Tanya reached an altitude of 10,000 meters, throwing the bomber crew into panic. In their disarray, they even fired on their own aircraft. Seizing the opportunity, Tanya leaped onto one of their planes. Facing the soldiers at such close range stunned them, and Tanya dropped a grenade and flew away. The bombers, realizing their leader's plane had fallen, immediately ordered a retreat, even dropping bombs to lighten their load. However, Tanya was not about to let them escape so easily. This is definitely the most ungrateful little girl I've ever seen. While others worship gods hoping for protection, she looks down on them and even vows to kill a god. Ironically, she gains divine powers and attempts to use them to kill the god. To suppress the enemy's rear and quickly end the battle, they decide to land on the northern coastline for a surprise attack, a place with the world's densest cluster of artillery, said to be so fortified that even a fool could defend it. To capture it quickly, the higher-ups send Tanya's magical squad. They fly in for a surprise attack with only 30 minutes to do so. Afterward, the squad splits into 3 groups, each tasked with destroying an artillery position. The enemy, puzzled by their focus on artillery, quickly sends a magical battalion for support. Tanya orders her subordinates to destroy the artillery while she faces the enemy alone. The sky erupts with battle as Tanya, from a high vantage point, eliminates some of the enemy. When an enemy major looks up and sees Tanya, known as the Rain Devil, memories of his comrades being killed at the Rhine front ignite his anger, and he charges at her recklessly, easily defeating Tanya's subordinates. At this moment, her deputy attempts a surprise attack, but it's blocked by the man's magical defense. Seeing the man doggedly pursuing her, Tanya gets irritated. She sprints behind him as he aims to attack, but then receives a message from her subordinates that all artillery has been captured. Their fleet also approaches the ground at this time, launching missiles to clear the infantry below. Tanya prepares to evacuate while the man, seeing the devastation of his comrades on the ground, can no longer contain his fury. The battle is not over yet. He charges at Tanya recklessly as a confrontation between 2 believers in the divine unfolds below. Still, Tanya's faith in the divine is more sincere. She strikes and pierces the man's body, but unexpectedly, he does not die. Instead, he truly gains the power of the gods, becoming a major obstacle in Tanya's path to dominance in the future. She is a killing machine on the battlefield, holding the rank of major at just 10 years old, leading the nation's strongest magical battalion. She slaughters at will on the front lines, unmatched and thus called the Demon of Rhine. Her image haunts the enemy's minds. This time, she receives orders from her superiors to support the front in Arlena City to the north, originally territory of the Republic. The local troops stationed there have been attacked and the railways suppressed. Supplies headed for the front are being intercepted, risking the frontline soldiers running out of ammunition and food. The local militia has reached an agreement with the enemy forces. Out of humanitarian concern, the Empire's military announces to the northern battlefield that anyone remaining in the city after the notice will be treated as enemy forces according to international law. Tanya is tasked with annihilating the enemy's magical troops and then shelling the entire city. Upon receiving the order, Tanya immediately leads the 203rd Battalion to the battlefield. Upon arrival, they are ambushed by the enemy, who had clearly been waiting for them. Tanya then orders the battalion to spread out, with the deputy locating the exact position of the enemy for Tanya to annihilate. Despite their magical defenses, the overwhelming number of enemy forces caused some soldiers to be hit before they could dodge. Vorin immediately helped bandage the wounds of a comrade, and Tanya rushed to the scene. To prevent further injuries to her subordinates, she ordered a retreat, emphasizing the need to not disrupt the attack rhythm. Then Tanya ordered a close-quarters battle with the enemy, knowing they were just buying time. After eliminating a portion of the enemy, they gained the upper hand. The enemy commander ordered a retreat, planning to delay time by hiding behind buildings. This played right into Tanya's strategy, as hiding behind distant buildings would not threaten their own artillery. Out of humanitarian concern, they issued a final warning to the civilians and soldiers in the city. The locals and soldiers were furious, feeling threatened. At this moment, an Imperial soldier took the chance to escape, but was brutally killed by the soldiers who caught up. This incident was captured by Tanya and her team, providing a justification for their bombardment and sweep of the entire city. The entire city turned into hell in an instant, with fire breaking out everywhere. The enemy's magic users never imagined that the Empire's soldiers would harm civilians to capture the area, forcing them to order a retreat. Tanya, through her actions, questioned whether to spare a defeated enemy. Just then, the enemy killed a fleeing Imperial soldier, an act discovered by Tanya and her team, who then ordered the artillery to bomb the entire city. Smoke billowed instantly, and everyone scattered for their lives. The magic soldiers guarding the area also retreated. After the fires died down, Imperial soldiers frantically rescued war prisoners buried under the rubble, believing that saving enough lives could lessen their guilt. Meanwhile, higher-ups reported that remaining enemy forces were retreating, ordering Tanya's squad to eliminate them. Vorin, seeing innocent civilians there, urgently requested the captain to spare them. However, Tanya taught him the harsh rules of the battlefield. If not completely eliminated, they would take up arms against us again. Seeing the guns on the ground, he realized there was some truth in his captain's words. Remembering the soldiers and civilians who hated them, tears involuntarily fell from his eyes. He ultimately picked up his gun and obeyed the orders. On the Rhine front, to end the war more quickly, the military chief decided to take a risk, ordering the main forces to retreat from the front line to lure out the enemy, making them think a major attack was coming. This tactic was meant to disrupt the enemy's morale. The first phase involved Tanya's magic squad, drawing the enemy's attention and gunfire while the main forces secretly retreated. The second phase involved a direct attack on the enemy's headquarters, throwing their main forces into chaos. However, capturing the enemy's headquarters was not so easy, troubling Tanya as her nightmare returned. Do you know who Tanya, known as the Rhine Devil, fears the most? It's the doctor who disregards everyone's lives. Previously, he transferred Tanya to the supposedly safe rear, but this safety turned her into a tool in his hands. Although spared from battlefield gunfire, she became a subject for experiments. Ignoring Tanya's well-being for his research, he subjected her to countless explosions daily as a test subject. Unable to endure the torment, Tanya requested to return to the front lines. However, upon her return, she encountered the doctor again, still as an experimental subject. To end the prolonged battle quickly, the higher-ups proposed that Tanya lead the magic squad to strike directly at the enemy's headquarters. Given the long distance, the military thought of the doctor who invented a new type of orb. This time, he brought the latest flying device, capable of flying at unassailable high altitudes and unreachable high speeds with 5 superluminal giant thrusters. Tanya worried about how to control it, But the doctor said no control was necessary, just keep flying. This would be humanity's first supersonic flight, leaving everything behind. However, such speed would cause intense vibrations, but the doctor assured that a magical barrier would suffice for defense. Indeed, this doctor does not regard magic users as humans. On the Rhine battlefield, the enemy discovered that the Empire's army had completely withdrawn, preparing to launch a full-scale invasion against the Empire. Tanya briefed the magic army on their next move, causing panic among her subordinates and unsettling the military superiors. They had placed all their hopes on Tanya and her team. The team then boarded an airship, marking a mission that could change the entire course of the war. With their backs against the wall, everyone was committed to a do-or-die battle. The doctor activated the device, and the airship surged forward. The 203rd Magic Battalion officially deployed, a moment of honor for the soldiers. Do you know the key to ending the battle? It's to launch a surprise attack on the enemy's headquarters. Tanya leads the Magic Battalion, traveling on a superluminal airship. Following an explosion, Tanya and her team successfully land near the enemy headquarters. They split into 3 groups. Due to their airship hitting a crucial enemy base, most enemy troops are distracted by the fire, allowing Tanya's team to infiltrate. Meanwhile, at the Imperial military headquarters, nobles are questioning the Minister of Defense why the front lines were evacuated, arguing that this prolongs the war while the nation's finances are already strained. The entire country could go bankrupt. Moreover, enemy artillery now reaches the western industrial zones. The minister responds that these are military secrets. Tanya successfully infiltrates the enemy rear. When they neutralize the guards and enter, they find the facilities abandoned, not the real headquarters. With only 60 seconds left, Tanya must rely on the other 2 squads. Soon, an explosion signals good news. The real headquarters was indeed with the other squad, and they complete the mission. The nobles are shocked by this news. On the Rhine front, since the Imperial army has already withdrawn, the Republic's troops are disheartened. The soldier, idle, picks up a cigarette to light it, unaware that many bombs are buried below, with detonation lines extending to the hands of the Imperial officers. Just as the soldier lights the match, the bombs explode instantly, blowing up the soldiers above. Turning around, he sees the entire Rhine battlefield engulfed in smoke, with the Empire's armored troops appearing beneath the smoke. The soldier tries to contact headquarters, not knowing it has already been destroyed by Tanya and her team. What follows is an encirclement attack, with armored units and infantry using tunnel tactics to breach the enemy's positions, surround their main forces, and completely annihilate them through a large-scale encirclement. The long-troubled Rhine front is finally coming to an end. Tanya leads the Magic Battalion, successfully disabling the enemy headquarters. This action directly turns the tide of the war. Without command, the enemy forces scatter like loose sand. The leaderless enemy tries to retreat, but the Imperial army has them completely surrounded. Now they are like lambs trapped in a cage. At this moment, Tanya and her team rush to the battlefield to join the fight. Suddenly, one of them is shot and falls into the sea. When Tanya looks up, she sees the assailant is the enemy colonel she had previously killed. Before they can react, the enemy attacks. Tanya immediately orders her troops to spread out and prepares to return fire. However, her subordinates say there are too many enemies, yet Tanya refuses to be chased and attacked by the enemy. Unexpectedly, the enemy colonel also received divine power. Now, battles rage in the skies. Imperial reinforcements are still an hour away, forcing Tanya and her team to make a last stand. The enemy still imagines that Tanya's group is just a squadron, hoping to overpower them with numbers. However, they do not know that every member of the 203rd Magic Battalion has undergone Tanya's rigorous training and is exceptionally strong. Tanya flies high into the sky, using the altitude to kill the enemy, but the enemy soldiers are too numerous, and many of her team are hit. Seeing this, Tanya leads her troops into the clouds, where the enemy can only wait outside. Suddenly, Tanya sprints out from the clouds, catching the enemy off guard. This is a clear display of overwhelming strength. As Tanya wipes off the blood, she sees the enemy suddenly attacking from her left. She quickly dodges, but the enemy is using a shotgun, a clear violation of the wartime conventions, a definite foul play. This is absolutely the most frightening enemy Tanya has ever faced. While she is distracted, he suddenly appears behind her with a shotgun and shoots at her. It is clearly stated in the wartime conventions that soldiers should not be equipped with shotguns. Faced with this cheating weapon, Tanya can only dodge in the air, but the man relentlessly pursues her. Her subordinates rush to support upon hearing the commotion, but unexpectedly, the man performs a backflip behind the soldiers and shoots them into the sea. A lieutenant, seeing his comrades hurt, rushes forward, only to find that enemy mages with guns are waiting for him. Seeing this, Tanya immediately rushes forward to save her dying subordinate, but gets hit by a bullet herself. Fortunately, she survives easily due to her protagonist's aura. However, the enemy colonel appears behind Tanya again. As her subordinate tries to sneak attack with a gun, the speed of the two is too fast for him to intervene. Tanya kicks the man's shotgun away and then pulls out a knife, stabbing towards the man's chest. Tanya gives a slight smile, but unexpectedly, the man grabs her arm and shows a terrifying smile. Tanya screams in fury, struggling to break free, but her small stature limits her. Just as the man is about to explode, a bullet hits Tanya's arm, shot by her aide-de-camp, who saves her. Tanya then wastes no time, grabbing a submachine gun and firing wildly at the man. Unexpectedly, the man takes numerous bullets but does not die. Instead, he detonates himself. The explosion creates a giant firework. Before the enemy can react, the Imperial magic troops arrive for support, and the enemy is forced to retreat in disgrace. Once the smoke clears, Tanya miraculously stands unharmed. By this time, the battle at the Rhine front has also ended, with the Imperial army winning the victory as expected. Everyone cheers at this moment, celebrating the end of a decades-long war. Although the 203rd Magic Battalion suffers heavy losses, fortunately, all members survive. This might have been Tanya's only chance to end the war, but it was squandered by short-sighted superiors. Previously, Tanya had destroyed the enemy's headquarters, which led to an early end to the Rhine front and wiped out the Republic's main forces. This forced the Republic to abandon its capital and its people, marking the end of a decades-long war. However, Tanya knew that the Republic's withdrawal did not signify the end of the war. As she had predicted, they were bound to take up arms and return. Tanya wanted to lead her team to completely annihilate the remaining enemy forces. However, the High Command did not approve, believing the war was over and that there was no need to provoke unnecessary conflict, as total annihilation could lead to global condemnation. But Tanya believed that the military leadership was drunk on victory, neglecting their duties and effectively committing a crime of inaction. She had seen too much on her journey. People driven by hatred, eyes burning with the fire of vengeance, and outstanding subordinates losing their cool in rage, all fueling a chain reaction of revenge driven by hatred. No matter how modernized or socially normative society became, emotion always took precedence over rationality. Recalling her initial push from the platform, Tanya knew that humans, when their interests were harmed, would abandon everything to fight against those who hurt them. At that moment, a soldier burst in, reporting an emergency in the southern continent, where a group of the Republic's remnants had gathered. Their leader declared they would live or die with the nation, vowing to resist the Empire. Upon hearing this oath, everyone cheered, and even the Empire's civilians and soldiers, previously basking in victory, were shocked to realize the war was not over. Even the Chief of Staff was infuriated. The real issue, it turned out, was not completely eliminating the enemy. Had they listened to Tanya's advice, the fight might have already ended. To rectify the mistake, the higher-ups decided to send Tanya to the southern continent to eliminate the remaining Republic personnel and conclusively end the conflict.
おう、神よ。貴様を切り刻んで豚の餌にでもしてやるとクソったれの神に我らが戦場は不似合いだ。傲慢な神とやらを失業させてやれ。では戦友諸君、戦争の時間だ。